Crawford. I'm the founder and CEO of Connect, and we're building the Connect platform to help cannabis operators find and secure contracts with trusted service providers. I've been in this industry for about 8 years. My first opportunity was as CEO of Lunchbox Alchemy, which is an extracts and edibles company here in Bend, Oregon. Since that point, I've been consulting as well as taking on full-time opportunities in other areas. Late last year, 2020, I decided to take an opportunity to find how operators find service providers that are meaningful to their project. Operators have a difficult time in this industry with finding service providers that are available within their price range and are specifically targeting requirements for a particular project. The Connect platform is designed to help those providers easily create a service offering. And within that service offering, they can designate very specific parameters. So what I'm going to do now is walk you through two journeys, one of them as a service provider, one of them as an operator. First thing a service provider needs to do to get onto the Connect platform is to create an account. The account is created through either an SSO or a single sign-on using any one of 4 Apple, Google, Facebook, or Microsoft accounts. You can also sign in with your email, no problem. We'll take your full name, business email, company website, and from there we'll create an account. Then what you'll do is you'll add additional details about where your business is located, what category you are specifically targeting, and if you have secondary categories as well. We'll finally verify your email, verify your account type, and then we'll go ahead and save through the process and get into the service offering. The service dashboard is the key landing page for service providers. This is where service providers will create new service offerings, review current service offerings, and also review their current partners associated in those services. In this case, we're going to create a service for a lab. What we're going to do is we're going to create a particular service, and we're going to abbreviate this service with 5 questions and answers. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and create a hemp edible full panel compliance test. We're going to go ahead and say it's per batch pricing, and it's Monday and Thursday courier pickup. Each category will have between 5 and 30 questions. Today we're just going to go ahead and do a 5 question. What that does is it creates a service offering in the dashboard for that particular service provider. And as you'll see here, this service provider already has multiple service offerings. In this case, there's 12 contracts active under the hemp edible tag. What we can also see here is we can see that the service provider has multiple service offerings, multiple contracts within. Some are paused, some are canceled, and some may have partners associated with those particular service offerings. You can think of partners as subcontractors to the general contractor, which is the service provider themselves. The key element to the Connect platform is reputation and scoring. Within the My Feedback section of the provider dashboard, we'll be able to show scoring from both the operator to the provider and the provider to the operator. In this section, you'll essentially see contracts that have been won, and we'll show in a minute contracts that have been lost. In the won area, you'll be able to see who this particular contract is with. You'll be able to see when that contract has been initiated, when it ends, and the contract value, and what term. On the right-hand side of this, you'll also be able to see bids in progress. These are contracts that are underway, or the contract requests that are underway from the operators. You'll be able to see where you stand in that process, a little bit about the type of operator that has initiated that contract and the potential deal value. One of the great things that we'll be able to show a provider is on the lost contract section. What we can show here is a significant amount of information about market performance for this particular provider and their offering. In this case, what we can see is there's 5 contracts that this particular provider has lost. And we'll be able to show specific detail about why they may have lost, such as by price, or if there's a scheduling conflict, perhaps maybe a courier for a lab is unavailable, etc. You'll also be able to dive in and do a full report on that lost contract, meaning that we'll be able to give the provider very specific information. And they'll be ultimately able to look at that information and decide if they want to create a new contract or a new deal specifically for that particular set of parameters. It's super powerful in the sense that there's no other way that a provider is able to specifically find that information. All this will be anonymous, so the operators and providers do not know who each other are, and the operators are free to essentially create a requirements document as they are going through the Connect platform without the provider knowing specifically who they are. Not until a contract has actually been completed do both sides get introduced to each other. The Connect operator journey is typically going to be on a mobile device. In general, operators will just drop into the mobile platform. They'll go ahead and get started. They'll create an account very similar to a provider. We use single sign-on as well as email. They can create that account, and they'll immediately be dropped into a sequence of questions that are specific for their particular project. We're going to ask them what service they're looking for, what their budget range is, and what their timeline range is. The next page, we ask them where they would prefer their provider to be located. They can set up multiple locations and multiple radiuses in this case. Now we're going to go ahead and ask them category-specific questions. These are the exact same questions that we would ask of a provider in a slightly different way. So what we'll go is we'll see this sequence of questions here that are very similar to the hemp lab testing section of the provider. We'll see the exact same questions: hemp, edible, full panel compliance, per batch testing, Monday and Thursday couriers, and so on and so forth. What they'll see at the top is they'll see the available provider numbers. In this case, we'll see that there's 9 available providers at this particular place in their journey. We'll look at a few other details of that provider to give the operator a little more information to go on to select. In this case, we see that there's a 5-star rated accredited lab for their particular project. The business has been in business since 2016. We'll go ahead and select that. At this point, the operator sees that they have accepted a particular offer, but they have not yet signed. The operator will also be able to see all the parameters that they've agreed to so far. And at this point, they can ask additional questions in a one-on-one to that particular provider. This does not mean that the provider is actually sitting there responding to those questions. They're already predetermined by the service offering. So we'll ask a couple additional questions once we get to the final question that we want to ask. We'll skip that. We'll get back to the details of the contract. At this point, we can read that contract. It'll be presented on screen. That contract can also be shared with a supervisor, emailed, and they can come back at any time to this step. Once they've accepted that contract is good for them, they'll accept the offer and sign the contract. And at this point, they'll be introduced to the provider. They'll get details about that provider. The provider will be notified. They'll see all the details that they've agreed to. The contract will be shared between both parties, and they'll get introduced via any method that they choose, whether it's video chat, standard chat, or they can simply call the provider, or the provider can call the operator.